Celsius, the lending protocol that allows you to deposit funds, earn money. Also, you can borrow, lend, or short in this protocol. This is a centralized protocol on the blockchain, and I think it is going to die. I'm going to talk about that in this video here because what we're going through right now is super interesting. How can the company, right, because that's effectively what it is, go through and guarantee interest at a certain rate? It's slightly variable, but earn up to 17% through taking the deposits and leveraging those. What do we know about crypto leverage? I've done a couple of videos on this. If you leverage collateral that is volatile, you're holding volatility risk. If you go through and you use a stable and you borrow a volatile asset, you're still going to be exposed to volatility risk because that can actually increase the price you have to pay your shit back in. Or you could do a double whammy where you use a volatile asset and you borrow a volatile asset against a volatile asset, and then you know what you have? Volatility squared. That's what we're going to get into in this video. But first, if this is your first time here, what's Gucci? My name is Sam. For those of you who are returning, it's good to freaking see you. Take a deep breath. This is going to be amazing. This is going to be amazing. You might actually be able to witness this during this video, how this is going to play out. So, what am I talking about? Well, the other day, this was 2 days ago, Celsius drops this memo, and they say, hey, bitches, you can't take any of your money out, right? Due to extreme market conditions, today we are announcing that Celsius is pausing all withdrawals, swaps, transfers between accounts. What? Right? That's some Robinhood BS that they did with the bowling alley thing, AMC, right? The retail traders, the retail investors, the small guy, the 99% were effing over the hedge funds. And one of the hedge funds actually had money from one of the companies that Robinhood sells their trading data to front run people, in my opinion. And they stopped retail traders, the 99%, from actually being able to withdraw, trade, or transfer any of their funds in Robinhood. Celsius is doing the same effing thing. However, Celsius is going through a liquidity crunch, I think, because why do you do things like this? Why do you tell people that you can't withdraw money, you can't swap, you can't transfer between accounts? And they go on to say that they want to honor this over time. Yeah, right. I'm going to get into make the case why I think that they could go completely under. Our ultimate objective is stabilizing liquidity and restoring withdrawal, swaps, and transfers between accounts as quickly as possible. There's a lot of time and work ahead of us, blah, 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 blah. But they mentioned liquidity several times. What is liquidity? What is liquidity? Well, you can think of liquidity as kind of like cash management, so to speak. And when you have something where people are trying to pull money out, right? Because they're like, ooh, this is some scary shit, right? We don't want some centralized POS controlling our assets, right? Because that's what we have in legacy. Do we want to get into crypto and have the same effing thing happen with this company that calls themselves Celsius? Right? So there's people taking their money out. While what happens when you make loans against volatile assets? Prices are dumping. We're going to look at BTC price in a moment. We're going to look at the CEL price in a moment. And then we're going to touch on an article as well as one of the loans. Some scary shit, right? Okay. Well, for anybody who's in Celsius. For everybody else, this is a great time to be alive and be into crypto. Perfect buying opportunity. DCA, dollar cost average. Okay, so take a look at this. Over the last week, my head's probably covering part of this up. Yeah, but over the last week, a 50% decrease, 50% decline, right? It was at 70 cents and it's currently at 31 cents. More than a 50% decline in Celsius in just the last week. Bitcoin is at $22,000. Do you know what else happens at around $21,000 for Bitcoin? Have you ever heard of Michael Saylor? Michael Saylor. Right, this dude right here, Michael Saylor. He's the guy behind micro strategies, right? And after crypto market wipes $1 billion off his books, Michael Saylor tweets a picture of something, right? Well, what happens after around $21,000 Bitcoin price for Michael Saylor? Well, he has to liquidate part of his positions or add additional collateral. And he's been public about this. This happens at around $21,000. Okay, what price are we at currently in Bitcoin? We're at $22,000. We had Terra Luna collapse with their UST, algorithmic, printing of UST collapse, a month ago. Well, Bitcoin is currently at $21,000, $22,000, right? But $1,000 away. A week ago, I think they were at 30 something, right? So the peak over here, they're at $31,000. So they're down nearly $10,000, just under $10,000, right? Well, there's people in crypto, there's people in every area of life who would purposely try to drive the price of Bitcoin down to fuck over somebody else, right? So think about this. As I mentioned, you can deposit, you can lend, you can borrow, or you can short, right? So what did I just say about Michael Saylor? Right? He has to add liquidity at around $21,000 price of BTC. This is all related. What happens with Celsius? Well, you can deposit things and then borrow those things to short. So what does that mean? What does it mean when you go through and short something? What you can do is you can go to Celsius, right? So I've got $10 million of USDC. I could take my $10 million of USDC. I could put that into Celsius, deposit that shit, and then I can borrow Bitcoin against that holdings, right? And what do we want to do if we're shorting? We want the price to go down. Right? We want the price to go down. So if I go and put my $10 million into Celsius, I borrow, say you can borrow 50%, right? So I borrow $5 million. Maybe I do $100 million, whatever, right? There's people out there who purposely do these kinds of things to fuck other people over, but because they expose themselves to these risks by doing these things, right? So it's just, it's just what happens in the real world. Not saying it's a bad thing or people shouldn't do it, right? This is how people tend to get stronger, is by learning from their fucking mistakes. Okay, so people deposit their money, they borrow BTC against it. What do they do with this BTC? Well, they go through and they sell that against the market, and they can market dump this down. They can dump this price down to the point where Michael Saylor has to add more liquidity to his position, or he has to liquidate some of his position, right? So if somebody can continue to sell down the price of BTC, so this could be using Celsius to sell the price down, right? But also, right, you could take some of that money and hire people who write articles and people on YouTube to write very bearish stories about what is actually going on in the crypto space, what is going on with Bitcoin, right? If you think this is far-fetched, then you should probably watch something else or look in the mirror and wake that up. This shit really happens. I could take $100 grand and go put that into PR to propagate a bunch of bullshit around BTC to drive the price down in conjunction with me selling the price down of BTC. What happens at that point? Michael Saylor has to put up liquidity. Michael Saylor also and or has to sell part of his position. What does that do to the price? Well, it drives it down. Well, we got to get back into Celsius, right? How is Celsius going to go away? Well, let's get into that now. Now we've given this context, right? I want to hear what your thoughts are. Do you think Celsius is going away? Do you think Celsius will survive? Or just they're the next Terra Luna? I think they could be the next Terra Luna. I found this. This is CryptoPotato.com. What's going on with Celsius Network and why it is a huge risk for crypto. I don't know if it's a huge risk for crypto, but it's a huge risk for anybody who's in Celsius, right? Now, they go through and just explain some of the things that I've been talking about here, but they go through and they show you, they pull up this, right? This is Oasis. This is oasis.app, and they say in this article that's this link right here. They say that this is one of the loans that Celsius has against their BTC. Check out this collateralization ratio. You can think of collateralization ratio like that big word, right? It's a big word. Most people don't know what that means. Think of it as a safety ratio. What happens next on this? Like, this drops. This is you think 200% is a lot. This is not a big collateralization at all. Check this out. Liquidation happens at $17,000. Okay, let's start to put these things together. Celsius took a bunch of people's money, right? They collected people's money like a bank does, right? And then they're going to leverage that to give the people who they claim to give out up to 17%. They're going to be like, hey, bro, give me your money and I'll give you money back. And then they take everybody's money and they leverage it out, right? $500 million, right? About $1 billion. I'm sorry, $500 million of wrapped BTC, right? So we have a boatload of this as a loan using other people's money to take this and earn yield somewhere else, I would assume, or do something else with it. I don't know what was borrowed against this, right? With a liquidation event happening at around $17,000, right? So you're like, this is interesting. When you put this into context with the current BTC price and what's happening with Michael Saylor, I don't see this as ending very well, folks. If you have friends that are in Celsius, I don't know if you're still able to actually take money out or not, or if you're not able to take money out. But if you are able to take money out, I would get your money out of Celsius as quickly as possible. And tell any of your friends that you actually give a shit about, right? The friends you don't really care about, doesn't matter. But the friends that you do care about, tell them to get their money out of Celsius, right? It's effectively a bank that I believe is going to fail. I believe this is going to fail when this comes down to 20 grand, 19 grand, 18 grand, then we have a point where we could have a point where Michael Saylor doesn't have more collateral to put up, doesn't want to put up more collateral in his position. What does that mean? Well, that means that he has to sell, right? Because if you have a loan, say something like this, and the price drops to it's getting down there, right? It's at 91% collateralization. So as the price of BTC comes down, remember I told you at the beginning, if you borrow against a volatile like this is collateralized, right? So the collateral is wrapped BTC. You have volatility. So instead of like borrowing against this house, right? I don't hold volatility risk. So the price goes in half, it doesn't fucking matter as long as I continue to pay the bill. did a whole video on this. You guys can check that out. When you have collateral that is as volatile as BTC, where you have a $10,000 drop in the price of it over the course of like a week, right? And you can get liquidated, then you have a point where Michael Saylor could stop putting up collateral and he has to sell some of his position. What does that do? Well, that drives down the price of BTC even further. What does that do for the people who shorted BTC, right? Well, if they use Celsius to short this, thinking this presentation, like the idea that I told you about, right? Where you can short to F somebody else over because they've been publicly telling you at what point they have to start putting up more collateral, right? Well, then this, oops, I don't know if this, I'll start reloading this. This right here is going to have to be liquidated at some point, right? Because then you're going to have Michael Saylor selling potentially, right? Because he's like, oh, I don't have any more collateral to put up. So what happens when Michael Saylor starts selling his Bitcoin? Well, then you have the price dropping over here even more. And then at some point, the price hits this. And what happens? Utter mayhem. Think about another $530 million sale being dumped of BTC. Wrapped BTC on the markets. This will destroy. It's going to be an utter fucking bloodbath. I do see this happening. I do see Celsius going away permanently. I see this dying, right? And I'm giving you this data here, right? Just did this tweet this morning, which is just blowing up. Just did this a couple minutes right before it started, 27 minutes ago. 6 comments, 4 retweets, and 10 likes. Celsius leveraged depositors' funds with this loan, getting very close to liquidation. If/when Michael Saylor gets liquidated, Celsius is going away. If you think Michael Saylor is going to get liquidated at 21K, currently about 22K, get your money out of Celsius and tell your friends. You are welcome. If you enjoy this video, make sure you take a second, press the share button. Send this to your friends who have Celsius or think Celsius is an intelligent thing, so that hopefully they can get some of their money out. And by doing this, you have to be aware that we're also going to create this into reality, which you're just getting the accurate information here, but by going through and doing this, people are going to actually create this into reality. This is going to be a very interesting time as we watch this play out. I appreciate you guys. Don't forget to check out my Twitter, right? Come over there, say what's up. Instagram, link down below. Other YouTube channel related to some gains in the gym. You could check out that as well down below. I appreciate you. Talk to you soon. Peace.